For people who want to know what is the Keith Network, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities, and never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. To prove them, you still amount to something.
Hi, this is Sonny Lachine. I just want to thank Keith Andrew for interviewing me on his radio show. I think he's doing a fantastic job. It's really important to have people like Keith that are willing to tell our stories. And just look forward to maybe down the road doing another interview with him. And I want everybody to check out his show and make sure you stay in touch because he's got a lot of good things happening. He's a happening guy. And thanks again, Keith. Had a great time, and I hope you enjoyed the interview.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the KeithAndrewNetWork Network. It is episode 1033. If you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, and all social medias, definitely leave a comment. We would love to interact with you, hear your feedback. Today, we have actor, CEO, and producer only here on the one and only KeithAndrewNetWork Network. As you heard from the recommendation video, our guest has introduced themselves. So I'm going to ask you the 29, and we don't have to do all of them, but 29 combined questions. I have 15 of today's best acting questions and 15 of the best producing questions. So I'm going to start off easy. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Sonny Lachine, as I mentioned. I'm a CEO. I actually run two HVAC companies, heating and cooling, and another water heater company. So that's sort of my go-to business. I've been at that for about 30 some odd years, 10 years in my own business. And unbelievably, at the age of 61, I decided to get into acting. So I started basically back in September, we'll say, of 2022. I had 0 followers. I started a separate account because I wanted to keep it, separate from my real work. And now I've got like 6,000 followers on Facebook, 5,000 on Instagram, and they're all actors, producers, directors, film industry types. So since I started, I've actually done 5 or 6 different TV crime documentaries. I'm actually tomorrow, I'm in a paranormal series. I'm doing that tomorrow, and got a few things coming up, some movies. I'm actually cast in The Fashion Hero, which is kind of taking the internet by storm. It's a reality TV series redefining the stereotype of fashion. So it's basically to tell everybody that it's everybody's beautiful in their own skin the way you are. It doesn't matter size, shape, race, color. So that's what really hooked me on that. I just came across it on the internet, and I made a profile, and then next thing I know, I got voted in, and I'll be going to Croatia in March of 2024 to film it. AJ McLean of the Backstreet Boys is a host, and it's actually season 2 is streaming on Paramount Plus Canada right now, and it's really a high-end show, really well done, and looks great. Can't wait to go.
No, absolutely. Hashtag absolutely. So the second question I want to ask you is, what attracted you to begin your career as an actor? And the same exact question for being a producer and CEO.
Well, I kind of, I think everybody in one way or another would like to be an actor. So, I kind of always thought about it, but never really thought that I could do it or knew how to really get into it. And I have a older gentleman friend on Facebook, and he started posting behind the scenes pictures from sets, so I just messaged him. I go, how'd you get into that? And apparently he was acting ever since he was young, but put it on the shelf until he retired, and he just got back into it. Does basically background, acting, but it's been on like big movies and stuff. So, I thought, well, why not? I told my wife, I said, I wouldn't mind trying it. She says, go ahead. Why wouldn't you? So I made a profile. I've got an agent, and I submit myself. She sends me a bunch of auditions. I just did 2 tonight for different commercials. So she sends me bigger auditions, and I find a whole bunch of other ones on my own. Did a music video that's going to film festivals. It's basically just music in the background, and it's about 5 minutes of acting. A widower can't get over the loss of his wife, so it's pretty dramatic role for a music video. So they're sending that to film festivals. So yeah, I that's basically how I got started. Just made a profile and started plugging away, looking at where I can apply. Joined various casting groups like Backstage, Mandy's, etc. Actors Access is big for postings, and then the producing. Yeah, it's just I kind of just fell into that. I know somebody that was making a movie, and I offered to help any way I could. So I started promoting it, and a lot of friends that I have on Facebook, they started seeing that I'm promoting this film. So the next thing you know, I'm getting scripts, daily. I'm actually executive producer on 12 different films right now, and I'm under contract. Like I've signed contracts for I think 7 of them. The other ones are smaller indie short films and stuff, but I'm on a couple major films, like budgets everywhere from 10,000 for an indie film to like 12 million. So it's it's quite the chore that I got myself into. Finding funding is the hardest part for film. Everybody's got an idea. It's no problem casting for a movie. Everybody wants to be in it, but finding the money is the hard part, and that's what I'm under contract to do.
It's funny you should mention it. From finding money, it's a hard thing. There are easy ways, and I'm not promoting as any stretch of imagination. I mean, there's loan sharks. There's the mafia. I'm not promoting that whatsoever. I'm gonna earn everything. It's like the line from Futurama. I pay my taxes. I pay an arm and a leg at a time.
Right. No, exactly. So that's another thing. It's funny you mentioned the mafia, and that there's most investors are pretty savvy, and they're serious. They're serious people and serious with their money, so they tend to question where the rest of the funding is coming from, and they don't want to be involved with any kind of shady, they don't want anything to happen to their money, put it that way. So
No, absolutely. So the next one I want to ask you is what experience, obviously, this is sounding like a stupid question, but I want to ask anyway. What experience do you have in making videos about films in this case?
yeah, so I'm more of a behind the scenes. So to be honest, I've been learning as I go. So I since I got involved, I've really learned quite a bit. And the first one that I've really got involved with is going to be was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and that's going to be filming in about another month down in the States. So all my films right now are in the States, and of course I'm in Canada. So that's another challenging thing, because in order to work in the US, you have to have a visa or a green card, as they call it. So I've been working on, they have a thing what's called an O1B visa, which is basically for anybody in the entertainment business. If you're a musician or an actor and you're in Canada, that's the type of a visa that's probably the simplest to get, which is not that simple to get as well, because there's a lot of requirements. You need letters from employers. You need interviews like this. You need publicity. Why should they give you a visa? Who are you? So you have to prove your worth as an actor, you know, or executive producers, whatever, to in order for them to consider you, you know. You have to find an immigration lawyer, pay him a bunch of money, and hope that you get your visa. Because if you don't get the money back. So,
Well,
so
it's
yeah, it's a learning process. But yeah, I've got a couple of those short films that are coming out, so I've learned quite a bit along the way. You know.
yeah, it's funny you mentioned about it, how to get a visa from Canada to the US. I always wanted to move to Canada, and my dad always jokes about saying you're learning to say, well, Canada doesn't want you. But
Oh, Canada
hypothetically,
takes anybody.
but hypothetically,
Canada takes everybody, and they're very accommodating. Like we're known for being the welcoming country, you know, which is good. It's very multicultural. Like I live near Toronto, and I mean it's you know you see people from all different backgrounds. It's multicultural everywhere you go. You know, if you go way up north, there's a little less uh, multiculturalism, but down in the big cities, it's you know every ethnicity you can imagine. You know, I think we have one of the largest Chinatowns outside of actually China.
you mentioned if you needed a visa to work in Canada. Is it the same exact process for if I wanted to work in Canada? Is it the same process?
I don't think it's quite as stringent. I mean, I'm sure that you have to have, you would probably have to have a work visa because, like, for example, my sister-in-law, my wife's Philippine, so we brought her sister over. And in order for them to come to Canada, they have to have a job offer and then they have to have a work visa. So she had a work visa, which lets her, you know, do the job that she came for. And then it actually, with COVID and everything, it expired, and there was a huge backlog on, you know, government renewing PR cards and work visas, et cetera. So she went for a little while there without a work visa, so she couldn't, you know, legally work. So you do require a work visa to work in Canada as well. I don't think that the process is exactly the same, but yeah, it's there.
Well, absolutely. So the next one I want to ask you is what is some of the biggest films that you helped and worked with? Like, have you worked for Marvel, DC, Fox, Sony?
Uh, no, not as of yet, but a couple of films that I'm working on. I can't really say a whole lot about them, but like biblical movies is supposed to be filming at Universal Studios. So that would be a pretty big one. There's another Viking saga that I'm trying to get funding for. It's filming in Prague, and I think that one is going to be really big. Like they're talking already about 3 sequels and a Netflix series and a video game. So these people are really well connected. You know, they have distribution already set up. So I haven't worked on any of the major, you know, films yet, but the ones that I'm working on are, you know, usually the average is around 3 to 5 million, and there's one that's up around 12 million. That's their budget, so that's a pretty daunting task to try and find $12 million. You know, and you got like you do your best, and I'm pretty well connected. That's one of my strengths is my network, which when I started acting, I realized quickly how important your social media is in networking is, you know, it's huge in acting because you can really open up a lot of doors and get a lot of opportunities, which I mean, I'm proof of.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned two questions that I do want to talk to you about, but this one kind of fits both of us because you're making films and you want people to watch it, and I'm in front of the camera and I want people to watch me. So the question I want to ask you is, what's hard about catering and building to the right audience?
Yeah, that's a good question because I get a lot of offers. You know, people come to me with all these different projects, and you really have to pick and choose, what you want to, or who you want your audience to be, and you have to, I think, believe in, what you're doing, just like you're doing a talk show, and you have to, really believe in what you're doing in order to sell it to, an audience that's tuning in for the first time. And for me, I wouldn't want to do a film that like I couldn't show my sister or my daughter, or that I would be embarrassed to. So I've actually turned down a couple of different genres that I really don't want to be involved with. So yeah, I try to pick things that I think is going to be a good sell, and things that I'm interested in, because then when people are asking me about it, I can come off as being honest about it, because I believe in it myself.
Actually, I do want to add my 2 cents to this one while we're still on the subject. What are your least favorite types of stories and shows to produce? Like you mentioned, you don't want to work on certain films for your daughters to see you in. So, does that go for TV shows as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more morally ethical, like I don't want to touch on things that are, with probably a lot of swearing, stuff like that, and not a whole lot of nudity. I don't. It's okay implied, but I mean, sex sells, right? But I don't. I like I said, I want to be able to tell my sister, "Hey, watch this movie that I produced," and I don't want her to be embarrassed when she's got her friends watching it with her. So, and probably my least favorite might be horror as a genre. Not that I really have anything against it, but when I was a kid, it scared the hell out of me. I used to love to sit and watch horror movies, and yeah, it used to freak me out. I used to have nightmares when I was a kid all the time, because I always watching some horror movies. So maybe that's why. But yeah, I mean, hey, Alfred Hitchcock is one of the greatest directors ever. So I'm big. I'm a big buff on movies, and I got that from my mother. My mother took us to see like James Bond. I mean, Thunderball when it came out at the show. I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I was at the show watching James Bond. So I kind of really grew up with an appreciation for old movies, and to this day, I like a lot of older movies. Like It's a Wonderful Life is probably my favorite movie of all time. I watch it every year faithfully, and yeah, I love old movies. The whole production behind it and the honesty of it.
Now, do you think that it's a generation gap where people are just too damn sensitive? I give you an example. When I was younger, my sister, my brother used to sit us down and watch Pinhead, Freddy Krueger, and funny story, we were watching on the movie Witches during a severe thunderstorm, and as soon as the main witch, head witch, was going to take off her face, the power goes out. And then we all go running downstairs. I remember the other time was same thing. We were watching Twister, and the same thing. The power goes out. Go to the basement. Go to the basement. As I get what's in the movie, we're not taking any chances. But
Yeah, that's
I saw so many things. Pinhead, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers. You name it, I saw it. But
yeah,
now my brother has a kid. He's like, oh no, she won't watch that. I'm not going to make her watch that, or I can't watch that anymore. So
yeah,
it's okay to inflict that onto
yeah.
me,
Inflicted your
but
your brother on it, but not your child, right? Yeah. So yeah, when I was a kid, I mean, it was like Frankenstein and Dracula. I mean, that was that was the scary movie. And when you look back at it now, it's like, wow, man. I mean, those movies were nothing like compared to like the movies. I mean, I seen a bit of. I probably didn't even watch the whole movie, but like Saw, Saw. That's like stuff like that. I'm not into. I mean, I'm not squeamish or anything, but I don't want to see a lot of blood, and
yeah.
I just not into it. That kind of violence like that.
Yeah, I can't stand those Final Destination movies. I just find something very disturbing about them.
Yeah, it's there's I don't know. It's a whole nother thing, and there's people that love it. And you know that's the funny thing. We were talking about it with another producer friend of mine, and I mean, you can make a terrible horror movie, and it's easy to get fun. Well, it's easier to get funding for it, and you could make a low budget horror movie and it'll make a ton of money because there's such a huge following, you know, for that genre, right? And if you want to make a nice, real, you know, dramatic or psychological thriller type movie, it's less appealing to maybe a mass audience, you know. So it's harder to fund and all the rest of it, even though it's 1,000 times better made movie, you know.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to pass it over to you. My last question for you is, why is it okay for certain subjects you can make movies about, and there's certain subjects that you can't, flip over a rock, or even if you do hint towards it, people are like, "Oh, how dare you?" I give you an example. Recently, someone who I interviewed a couple of years ago was part of a film called, it was something like a horror movie, obviously, about the Titanic. I'm like, okay, 150 years, the Titanic, they're dead and they're in a better place. But why is it okay to talk about the Titanic, but you wouldn't do a horror film about, I don't know, September 11th or Paul Harbert? There's certain
Yeah,
subjects you're like, absolutely not. Do not talk about this because you will be punched in the face. But but there's other
yeah,
subjects you're like, the Titanic 100, 200 years ago, who cares? So it's a ship. I'm not saying it's not a big deal or anything, because the Titanic was a big deal. But you know what I mean? There's certain things you kind of dig into it, but you're kind of like, are you doing it to get a reaction? Or are you doing it to sell the films? Are you saying you're an asshole about it? It's
yeah.
kind of like, you know what I mean? As a producer, you would know there are things you should and should not talk about.
Well, I think it's, you know, a lot to do with political correctness and, you know, time heals all wounds, right? So, I mean, even the Holocaust, you know, you can watch documentaries about it and they'll show you dead bodies all over the place and talk about it, no problem. But like you said, September 11th, you know, it's like you can't touch that because it's still too fresh and the people that were affected are still alive for the most part. You know, I think that's what really separates the two. You know, and the political correctness. I mean, nowadays, you know, it's like anything goes, which is I don't know a little. I don't like how everything is that way. I mean, I have certain I guess morals and they're my own morals. You know, so anybody should be allowed to make any kind of film they want, but has to me it has to be tactful and have taste. You know, like I said, something I want to show my sister. So, but yeah, as far as taboo subjects, I think it's a lot of it is just to do with time heals all wounds. You know, things that you can't talk about now. 50 years from now, they'll be showing you every picture they can find, every graphic image, and you know, just for the gore factor, you know, or the shock value. That's the other thing, you know. A lot of media outlets they thrive on that. I mean, even nowadays, you know, like you watch CNN and there'll be some, you know, daily mass shootings. I mean, in schools and everything, and they almost have no, you know, they almost have no morals or no respect for the families, like anything to, you know, get ratings.
No, you're absolutely right. And for an example, I think it's like what, 40, 50 years ago, they said Area 51 never existed. Now they're saying, yes, Area 51 did exist.
Yeah.
Or when Jaws came out, no one knew about Minneapolis. After the movie came out, they did research and found out that they covered up Minneapolis. So there's kind of like certain things you're kind of like, I don't know, I'm not a conspiracy person, but and that's
Yeah.
I find it very weird. But I want to pass the show over to you. Do you have anything coming up in the horizon you want to promote? And how can our fans and listeners follow you on social media?
So, for starters, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter at Sonny Lachine. So that's my handle on everything. And yeah, I mean, I'm really since I got that casting in the Fashion Hero, I'm really starting to get into the fashion side. I mean, at 61, right? But I think like fashion's for everybody, you know, it shouldn't be just pigeonholed into like teenager weighing 100 pounds soaking wet. Like everybody likes to dress nice and look good. You know, I've always said that when you look good, you feel good. And you know, it's healthy to feel good, right? To walk around not feeling down, feeling good about yourself. And fashion does that. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be $10,000 suit, like a clean pair of jeans and and a white t-shirt or something looks good, right? So since I got in that Fashion Hero thing, I'm really trying to promote that. And I got connected with a girl that she lives in England and she works for Gen C TV in England. So I'm actually going to be going to London maybe in July to do an interview. I could probably do it on Zoom, but I like to take my wife for a little vacation. So we're going to go there and she's going to interview me. And she's also got, she does the fashion weeks. Like she does in September, she's doing New York, then she's doing London, then she's doing Milan and Paris. So she's traveling the whole circuit. Each one, she's doing the fashion show. So she's gonna bring me down there. I may even be modeling if I'm lucky. She's gonna put my application through. But at the very least, I'll be getting interviewed on the red carpet, which is something I promised my wife when I started acting. That's my goal, honey. I said we're gonna get interviewed on the red carpet. She likes to get dressed up. So I told her I'll buy her, real nice dress, and she's got a lot of nice dresses, but I'll buy her a brand. So that'll be something to look forward to. And actually, ironically, about 3 weeks ago, there was the Crank International Action Film Festival was in my hometown, and just on Facebook that day, doing my thing, and all of a sudden I came across this pop-up for this international film festival in Hamilton. I go, wow, never even heard about it. So I messaged him. I said, hey, I just found out about it now. Like if I'd love to get involved with it next year. So they turn around, message me back, and they say, hey, we'd love to have you down as a guest. So I was actually out on my boat with my wife, my sister-in-law, and her aunt. And we're out in the middle of the lake, and they told me, if you want to come down, it was like about 4 o'clock. They said, if you want to come down, it starts at 6:30. So I told her, come on, we got to go. We headed back in, parked the boat, went home, got changed, and we took our pictures on the red carpet at the Crank International Film Festival. But I met, so there was two stunt guys that are on my Facebook friends list. So this guy is Jamie Jones. He is like a legend in this stunt. He's been in X-Men, The Revenant, been in the last 30 years. He's been in every major film that you can think of, Disney, Marvel. And he's a world-class car racer, world-class bike racer, stunt man. So him and his protege were the ones that invited me down. So I was down there as their guest, met the producer. We watched the film, The Fight Machine. It's a fantastic film. Really well done. I mean, for a boxing movie, there was no fake boxing in that movie. Like it was pretty realistic. It was really well done. So yeah, I felt like a celebrity there. We got out of the car and they were waiting out front to greet us. My wife was all happy. She was all dressed up, and yeah, we got some pictures on the red carpet. So, but I'm looking forward to getting more into the fashion thing. Going to London to do this interview, and I try to hook her up in some films that I'm producing. So she gave her a couple of films to audition for. So we're looking at that. And so the Fashion Hero that I mentioned, that's it's a reality TV series. It's season 2 is on right now on Paramount Plus in Canada. And AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys is a host. really well produced, really professional, well done show. So they actually, what happens is they have 22 people cast from all over the world, and they bring them all together. There's 4 fashion coaches that are all representing a major brand. They all have their own brands, and they pick their teams. So they go through like an elimination every week. It's not a live show, but it's reality TV. So every week they're eliminating somebody off their team. Then you end up with the top 4. They get signed with the major brands. Everybody gets signed with the brand, and the top person at the end becomes the fashion hero. So
Yeah,
that's going to be a lot.
no, absolutely. We're going overtime right now, but I don't want us to get kicked off. I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but we're wrapping up our interview segment. This will be aired on LinkedIn, Facebook, and all social medias. If you're watching and you want to be a guest, drop me a line. I interview everyone who's in the entertainment world, every actor, producer. If you're in the entertainment world, I have a great story. You're more than welcome. But wrapping up our show, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. And until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you, and have a good night.